Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining. My name is Claire Barrett. I'm director at APIsFirst, and I'm going to be talking with you today about helping people get value from their API investments, but specifically to get the numbers to add up. Why is this important? You need to know about this because you or someone you work with, or perhaps someone you'd like to work with, is trying to either explain APIs, get API projects or activities moving faster, or justify investing in something that is API related. And this is something that we are finding increasingly is somewhere where organizations are needing help and it's blocking their progress. There's nothing new about APIs, and yet despite 20 plus years of history and experience, there are still a lot of people asking about what they mean, what they are, or importantly, what their role is and why they're significant. While APIs are fundamental to simplifying tech landscapes, to modernizing legacy technology, and specifically, the progress and the pace at which people are trying to simplify their environments seems to be a lot slower than people are expecting. And while many born tech companies are very much find it very easy to adopt and understand APIs, the adoption is still pretty mixed in incumbent and mature industries, which is where myself and my colleagues and team allies and supporters spend most of our time. So one of the challenges would suggest that is well documented and facing many organizations is the degree to which they're making good progress on their broader so-called digital transformation, or the data that they might use to support how they are working towards being a more tech-enabled organization. This article has some good examples of the challenge with people's progress. It suggests that not even a third of organizations are getting to the kind of results from generating new revenues or saving efficiencies that they had expected from their investment. And this is playing out in the API space for people to be able to understand what they're achieving from that. So we're going to ask ourselves what's going on behind the scenes. There's a lot going on. The API space, to some extent, the conversation is at risk of getting a bit crowded out by the generative AI productivity needs, by the post-pandemic work collaboration efforts that are going on to really bed down what hybrid work looks like for people. There's growing amounts of effort on automation. There are supply chain challenges, regulatory needs, cyber threats. All of these pieces are creating a very, very busy space for people leading and or involved in API-related initiatives, particularly in larger enterprises. And it's kind of like the sound and the knowledge and the information about it is getting a bit lost. So in all of these spaces, there's a tendency to say, well, yeah, APIs have a role to play, and there's a cybersecurity role. There's a Gen AI count relies heavily on API enablement. The simplification agenda, often regulatory needs, are accelerated and helped by APIs, and yet getting the numbers to add up to support that story is becoming remaining challenging. And I believe there are three major places where organizations are needing to have this conversation and have a better conversation. The first is there are situations where, and I'm going to go through each of these, from having a vision without enough support, from having support without enough resources, and having resources without enough tangible results and benefits. So let's take the first of these situations. There are some organizations, or even it may be some areas within large enterprises where there might be a kind of someone or a team within the organization who really gets the potential for APIs. They could be an evangelist style of role. They are, if you like, kind of, I call it shouting in the wind somewhat, to being able to be heard, to get to the role that people are looking for, of having a need, a portfolio of good accessible API products, a simpler tech architecture. Some people are saying, well, if only we had the equivalent of the Jeff Bezos 2002 mandate, where all integration points were managed through APIs, life would be great. These are some of the things that people are seeking, and the challenge they've got is they're just not getting their message through and heard. It's as if what it plays out in terms of interest is that there may be some interest, but it's not from enough of the people who are going to be able to release enough resources and support to really accelerate the API agenda. The sorts of organizations that are in this situation will be hearing and seeing these types of things. They might be looking for focus on solving customer pain points as a priority over perhaps exposing more capability via APIs for others to consume. They may still be thinking of APIs as just a better form of integration, almost like a different protocol, as distinct from recognizing the opportunity for APIs to present a way of reusing and simplifying the integration landscape as a whole, as opposed to designing interface by interface. There may be a desire to move to what we might refer to as embedded business models. These can be the kind of embedded finance, embedded insurance prerogatives, but that's seen still as kind of like white labeling, i.e. as a distribution of existing products, as distinct from offering really new digital products in new and exciting ways. So this shouting of the wind can feel a little bit like for the API evangelists, that it's kind of like, over here, come and look at this. It's, it's amazing. Nobody can understand that they've seen the light, if you like, but they're struggling to get it heard. And these are this means that a lot of the traction that people are trying to attract won't happen at the right pace. In order to get traction and action for stakeholders who are struggling with turning the idea and getting real support behind the vision for what APIs can deliver, it can best play out through, for example, finding some form of killer app, or an opportunity, as we used to call it, or an opportunity for solving a very real pain point for customers or partners today. There's always a need to do a lot of education as well, and not to underestimate that API adoption does call for people to understand that they are much more than just interfaces, and the way in which and the people who are telling the story for that education to resonate can be quite varied. In terms of finding the numbers to add up, so my argument on all of this is that while APIs can often be a kind of conceptual thing, for many people it's still a case of needing to get support behind some visible metrics. And some of the metrics that people use in these earlier stages of adoption could be focused on the amount of reuse from APIs, so the number of different upstream systems that could be using the same API. This is but even a lot better than just having a count of APIs, which can sometimes encourage too much kind of point-to-point piece. It could be that you choose a metric like reducing the amount of time that it takes in integration through, which can be a longer term measure. It may be as a bit of a simpler piece like responding to an API problem space, or it could be based on customer or partner feedback, as they are putting sometimes more pressure on organizations to use APIs as their way of integrating. And that could be a simple metric to move early. So that's the first situation. The second situation can be you've got the support, but there isn't enough investment in the right types of resources and capabilities to really move the API needle a good distance. So these are the situations where people have said, yeah, APIs sound great. We've got work going on. Let's get behind the initiative. However, the way that the API agenda is being managed and run and funded, it's still feeling at the coalface as if people having to continuously go cap in hand to ask for more funding and monies and updates. So it might sound like it's a kind of go forth and the permission has been supported. Maybe there's a API need to go and invest in some technology. Perhaps the focus is on sorting out governance around API security or API coverage. But practically speaking, the API investment space is not feeling like it's a long-term sustainable thing. It's still being managed, if you like, as a kind of side part of a project, or perhaps as a one-off. The reason why some of this can happen is there may be a lot of different places where APIs could be emerging and appearing in the investment slates. There may not be the motivations in place to achieve more from having a portfolio of rich, well-functioned, well-designed APIs that are funded over the long term as true digital products. This may still be, there may not be the incentive to manage that. So it can feel a little bit like it's a bit of a scratching around for API resources. So if this is the situation, the kinds of numbers that need to be used to justify and support that ongoing and then the kind of next level of API related investment would be best tracked to a single problem. So some real clarity and focus on the specific API problem that this phase of work is seeking to achieve. There may be multiple areas, but by focusing in on a space that's going to get a lot of really good attention and show that the API related investment in that space is making a difference. So if you're solving the problem around, go back to API reuse, showing that by investing in some automated tooling and automated supported documentation and good standards, etc., that might be delivering on a knock-on effect. I'm going to just bring this a little bit to life by showing that you need to be able to focus on different types of stakeholders depending on the need in hand. So I've chosen a fictional organization here. Let's imagine a large-scale manufacturing type of business in maybe a heavy industry that or agricultural equipment in this case, that has a customer base, largely a B2B, a business-to-business customer base, to small or all the way up to kind of large-scale agricultural enterprises. And there are lots of places where APIs have potential for this organization. They might be looking to open up into new markets for offering equipment leasing programs, perhaps embedding some financial capabilities into their product offers. They might be trying to simplify a lot of legacy tech if they've gone through a lot of acquisition, acquired a lot of systems that could be hugely simplified and be made more secure. There could be a bunch of IoT related security requirements which would be better supported with APIs. For this organization, there could be 5 different major stakeholders, each of whom has a different type of API need. I'll just flick through them quite quickly, but the customers might be focused on creating, so the customer stakeholders, the internal customer support stakeholders of this organization who are facing off to their business customers. Experience. They could be looking for, seeking for their sales team to get a lot better support on a day-to-day basis and be using APIs in that space. They might be wanting the customer onboarding process to be sped up and much further automated. There will be requirements for the product people. So they could be looking to expand the product base and delivering a lot more third-party integrations. The engineering community, the software engineering community supporting the business could be looking to adopt greater DevOps around end-to-end delivery, and that could include API support and development support and better testing and integration. Maybe they're looking at co-piloting, they're doing some experiments around co-pilot coding with Gen AI. Over in the architecture world, they could be looking to APIs to simplify the environment, reduce technical debt, make the architecture more composable, make it stronger and more compliant. And there may be also an existing team or emerging team of API product capability, so pure digital product, looking to use APIs as ways to offer new capability out to new types of customers and channels, unlocking value from back-end systems and making those available. This equipment finance type of embedded business model might be that sort of thing. And the kind of priorities for that team are going to be around how to price this, how to monetize, how to get visibility of this API capability out into engineering communities in other organizations, software businesses and or partners. You've got, of these 5 different groups, very different opportunities and priorities for them in maturing their parts of the business, each of which has an API story. Of course, the challenge is that you can't please everybody all of the time, and one trap to try and avoid is kind of overthinking or even over-engineering or over-governing this large, wide horizon of this ocean of opportunity for API capability when you're still not at the point where it's kind of pervasively understood. So you need to invest in your next proof points. So last, I'm going to go through the group who have, so this is a kind of a third level. They've got, so we talked about vision without support. We talked about support without resources. There's a third situation where the API agenda is well resourced and supported in terms of skills, capabilities, tech, but it's not achieving scale digital transformation disappointment, some of those numbers that we talked about at the start. What it looks like and the way it's playing out is there's commitment, but it's all taking a lot longer or feeling a lot harder to actually deliver on the promise of APIs. People perhaps felt that the investment in a composable architecture would mean integration could happen quicker and faster, and it doesn't seem to be, still seems to be hard and difficult. There's another challenge that is quite common. I'll go into a little more detail in a moment, where the API agenda in terms of what will be achieved gets blurred with broader business strategies and opportunities. So, and then there's this environment of, recognizing it often at an executive, at a strategic level, an organization that being or behaving more like a software industry and tech company makes a lot of sense, but it's just not happening quickly enough. So if you're part of an API team and or supporting APIs in an organization that is in this third phase, you need to work and be really crystal clear about what APIs do versus what things they support or help make happen. So I strongly view that an API strategy about the tooling, the approach, the knowledge, the API product strategies that you might choose are different than a business strategy that chooses what markets to go into, how to live out your values and your purpose. API success is well recognized as reliant on a so-called API mindset, and that needs to be well established and supported for people to be able to bring it to life. And there is a difference, there is a complementary but different opportunities between API success and broader digital success, which may come from a different angle. So if we went quickly back to the organization that we talked about, and I'll just take one of the stakeholders, in this case, the customer-facing stakeholder who's got a bunch of priorities in onboarding, in getting Gen AI support for their team, this fictional company. They will have from that a number of things where APIs can make a difference. There's some specific implications. APIs can help them perhaps digitize existing processes that are and reduce some of the pain points that are going on. So by hooking together existing capability from within or even beyond the organization, they can perhaps offer a new, simpler customer experience. They might be able to embed some Gen AI capability more easily through APIs. They might be getting better insights to customers. But all of these things will have a measure on the customer impact, not on the, so they'll affect measures that are important to that customer stakeholder team as distinct from being API related themselves. So you've always got this two-step between what the stakeholder community needs, what API implications could support those needs, and then how meeting those needs will be measured in terms of impact for that customer group. If we were to look at all 5 of those areas, so going around the circle, that was customer, product, engineering, architecture, and the API product community, you can drill out or suggest specific measurable benefits. So these are things where the numbers should add up, the targets that are going to make a difference for this ongoing API investment. And these numbers are all related to the things that are important in their areas. And of this group, there is only one that actually directly relates to, if you like, bottom line for the organization. All of the others are things that influence it. So this comes back to my recurring message and one of the challenges that we see a lot of organizations facing, which is where they're looking for things on the right, very big scale goals and opportunities for their organizations that align very much up with their business objectives. And they are seeing and seeking for APIs to have a direct impact on things on the left: growth, profitability, efficiency, customer satisfaction, all of the things that you could argue any IT, even a Gen AI related initiative could have an impact on, but that rarely can happen directly in isolation. So The important thing when dealing with this third situation of a high level of maturity, if you like, around getting API numbers add up is making sure they connect to the right benefits. So if you put it simply, understand what difference APIs or investment in API related change can make and measure that, measure the impact of that, and understand where there's indirect impact and influence the teams that are accountable for measuring that and who actually have all of the pieces around the change, the process, the data, the people that will show that they can make a difference to the business overall. So measure what you can locally, but influence things more holistically. So in a nutshell, API perspectives for different stakeholders are very different. And if you want to make the numbers add up in your organization, you need to make sure it hits the mark for your team. So to summarize, there are 3 key things to be aware of. So get people's attention and focus on the thing that's important for them at this point in time. Do be aware that there are, I call them like the false friends or benefits that are not going to necessarily be able to be directly attributed to APIs. They'll only result in disappointment. And remember that a lot of API success is about the psychology of getting people on board as much as it is the technology. If you'd like to know more about how at APIsFirst we could help you at getting real value from your API related investments, then please get in touch. My details are here, and always looking forward to connecting with people and hearing about how what's going on in their organizations with their journeys. Thank you very much, and look forward to being in touch soon.